Okay. Just to remind those in the public gallery that you're welcome to use mobile devices as long as they're kept in airplane mode and all devices are muted. You're welcome to connect to the Assembly Wi-Fi and password details are available on the gallery rules. It is not permitted to take photographs or record any of the meeting. Okay, agenda item 2.
No apologies.
No apologies, okay. Are any members aware of any other apologies? No. Okay, the composition of the new committee is on page 16 of your pack. And contact details of the committee staff is on page 17. Obviously we have our committee clerk here, Stella McCardle, our assistant clerk, Ciara, and Tara McLafferty, who's helping out today. Obviously if you want to contact staff and if you're unable to attend a committee meeting and you haven't told one of your other members to let us know, it's better if Stella knows, I think, prior to the meeting in terms of knowing that we have a quorum for a meeting. So if you aren't going to be able to attend, if you could make sure that you let the staff know. Do you want to just go through the contact in terms of the contact details?
Yeah, members, well, I've left a little sheet on your desk there just asking for contact details. If you could complete that and return it to staff today. Just means that we have your preferred contact details, your preferred email address, your preferred mobile, your constituency office and those kind of issues. And then we'll, just means we can get when your pack goes up into the cloud, we can get notifications sent to your preferred email address. And if there's any issues with committee meetings or timing or anything like that, we can get you a text out in advance. So if you wouldn't mind filling those in and leaving them with Tara or myself, that would be great.
Okay. The next agenda item then is in relation to the declaration of interests. And again, if you can refer to the clerk's memo, page 19. Apologies, sorry. Just to make you aware that myself and the Vice Chair have met with the Minister, just to outline, I suppose, what kind of a relationship we would like to have with the department moving forward, and hopefully it will be a good and productive relationship. We are here to scrutinise and to challenge where necessary, but when we can work with the department, that's what we want to be able to do. And I would like that the department can use us, hopefully, as a sounding board and, you know, as a tool, really, in order to make the department work better as well. So it was just an introductory meeting, really, but hopefully we will have more meetings in the future and we will build up a good relationship with the Minister and her department. Okay, sorry. Declaration of interest then. All Assembly members are required to register relevant interests in the Register of Members' Interests. The deadline for that is Thursday the 9th of June. In addition to this requirement, Standing Order 69(5) states that a member who has A financial interest in any matter or B a relevant interest in any matter must declare that interest before taking part in any proceedings of the Assembly relating to that matter. Okay. That proceeding of the Assembly includes meetings of this committee. So this is the first meeting of the committee. Members should declare any interests held by them which are relevant to the work of the committee. Do any members have any interest to declare at this time?
To quote from the existing Register of Interest to make Stilla's life simpler, my wife and I have a shared interest in a family farm at Tardry, which is erroneously spelled Tandry. It's an R, not an N, County Antrim, which is adjacent to land owned by the Forest Service of now Dara, not Dard.
Yeah. Thank you. Edwin?
Yes, I'm partnership on a farm in Crossing and Lisson Stream in Elizabeth.
Okay. Nobody else? Sorry,
I
Robin.
still hold membership of the Young Farmers Clubs of Ulster and the Royal Ulster Agricultural Society.
What do you have to be?
Don't start.
Young farmers.
I did me already, Chair.
Must be an hungry thing.
My membership is past membership, I suppose, of the Northern Ireland Blue Cattle Club and the British Blue Cattle Society UK, with Northern Ireland rep for that. up to May, so
Thank you.
other than farming, so.
Okay.
Do you want a paper copy? Your thing keeps turning off.
Okay, the rules governing the registration and declarations of interests are contained in the Code of Conduct and Guide to the rules relating to the conduct of members, and that further advice and guidance is available from the Clerk of Standards, which is Shane McAleer, Rule 243. Okay, agenda item 5 then, committee procedures. Just would like members to note the following procedural guidance papers in the pack. Guide to the powers and operation of statutory committees for chairpersons and members. Guide to the role of the chairperson. Guide for members on the role and functions of the committee office. Guidance on timescales for interaction between committees, departments. Advice on the EU referendum. And if I can just draw members' attention to the guidance on privilege and matters sub judice under section 50 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998 for the purposes of the law of defamation. Absolute privilege applies equally to the making of a statement in proceedings of the Assembly and the publication of a statement under the Assembly's authority. This privilege also extends to meetings of the committee. Members should note, however, the privilege does not extend to press conferences or statements made to the press. Sub judice falls under Standing Order 73 of the Standing Orders for the Northern Ireland Assembly. Sub judice applies from when a criminal charge or charges is brought, or from when notice of an appeal is lodged to the time that the verdict and sentence have been announced, or from when a civil action is listed for trial until judgment is given. In such cases, the matter awaiting adjudication should not be prejudiced by comment in a public session of a committee meeting. These rules are summarised in paragraphs 27 to 30 of the Guide to the Powers and Operation of Statutory Committees for Chairpersons and Members on page 22. If I can also draw your attention to the advice relating to committee business in advance of the EU referendum, particularly paragraphs 11 to 15 on pages 44 and 45. Okay, agenda item 6. If you can note the guidance at page 47 of the packs. Okay, I'd like to welcome members of staff from the Assembly Research and Library Service who will provide a brief overview of the role of the Assembly Research. Mark Allen and Susie Cave.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I suppose it's a very quick meeting, or I suppose our engagement we have with you today. Very simply, just to I suppose take the opportunity to highlight the work that the Assembly's Research and Information Service does, and really can support you in your role as a committee. And I have to say too, maybe something that maybe members haven't been aware of in previous mandates as individual MLAs. We're here, I suppose. You get two for the price of one this time, I suppose, because it's a new committee structure, effectively, in a sense, really based on the fact how the portfolio will be split. So my colleague Susie, I suppose, previously covered the DOE portfolio, and I suppose that will really continue those elements that have transferred to the new department. And myself, I previously worked in the DARD portfolio, so it's likely you'll be seeing both of our faces, I suppose, as and when you ask for different pieces of work. The other thing I want to say is that looking around the table, there's obviously people who've been here before, there's a few new faces. What I'm going to say is very brief, as is what Susie, but if you've heard it before, just bear with us. And I say we're very happy to take questions at the end. I think the other thing, just very briefly before I hand over to Susie to say specifically what we do, there are two other elements to the Research and Information Service that you may well use or may wish to use. And again, if you want to know more about those, come and talk to us. The first one being next door, which is the library, which I'm sure and many of you have been in, but can really provide support to you in terms of inquiries that you may have. They have access to a wide range of electronic and physical documents. Equally, in terms of legislation, they can assist you with in terms of tracking down and what the current situation is. And the other element which the library does provide, as I'm sure a number of you have utilised and who've been here before, for plenary debates they will produce packs to give you information relating to the issue. In terms of the education service, I mentioned them. They're also, I suppose, one that has been well used in previous mandates. And effectively what they're there to do is really to help young people of school age to find out how the Assembly works. So it wouldn't be unusual for many of you, I'm sure, who've been here before, have hosted visits where schools will come up. You'll have the opportunity to engage. And the research service, or that the education service, really takes them through how the place operates. Interesting thing as well, which you may want to look at maybe further down the line, the education service, if there's an issue that comes up for a committee which you want to get a particular perspective of young people on, they can facilitate that, and they've done that in previous mandate as well. As I say, very happy to talk about any of those or to give you more information on them. At this point, I'll just hand over to Susie.
Okay, good morning. I'm just going to talk about specifically what we can do from a research perspective. So we provide independent, evidence-based and objective research briefings to all committees and even individual MLAs on a confidential basis. Now, our recent publication, which I think has been handed around, or will be handed around, Consider This. This just gives you a flavour of some of the briefing material that we can provide, and it contains a selection of articles from our subject specialists on some of the current issues. It also has some of our contact details, so you can contact us directly if you want to discuss any individual research or how to make an actual request. We also can provide advice on research methodologies, and we have a team for statistics and map-based GIS. Thank you. As well as that, we also provide support to the committees on the kind of EU legislation and policies. And we also have a team that can provide advice on budget and public expenditure as well. So over the next few weeks, ideally, we would quite like to meet with you individually to see if there's any areas that you would like us to maybe look into. And how we can just assist you in general. But for now, we're happy to take any questions or to clarify anything. And again, we look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Mark and Suture both. Do any members have any questions they want to ask? Either Mark or Susie? Okay. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7 then, legacy report. If I can just refer members to the Clerk's memo, page 58 of the pack, and the legacy reports from the committees for Agriculture and Rural Development and Environment and Culture, Arts and Leisure, pages 59 to 139. If members are happy, it would be appropriate at this stage to note the reports and defer consideration of the reports until the committee's strategic planning day. Are members happy enough that that's how we move forward? Okay. Agenda item 8 then, subordinate legislation. Again, if I can refer members to page 141 of the pack for guidance on handling subordinate legislation. It's normal practice for a committee to delegate responsibility for the technical scrutiny of statutory rules to the examiner of statutory rules, who is an officer of the Assembly, and to authorise her to report her findings to the committee, the Assembly and the Department. By delegating authority for the technical examination of the rule to the examiner, the committee can focus on the merits and policy aspects of the rule. So, if I can just ask the members to agree the following. Motion that the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, under Standing Order 43, resolves to delegate to the Examiner of Statutory Rules the technical scrutiny of statutory rules referred to the Committee under the above mentioned Standing Order. The Committee further resolves that in carrying out this function, the Examiner shall be authorised to report her technical findings on each statutory rule to the Assembly and to the relevant department, as well as to the Committee itself, and to publish her report. Okay.
Agreed.
Are we happy to agree that? Okay, we have agreement then.
Talk through that while we're waiting.
Okay. Agenda item 9 then is a department briefing, strategic overview. The Permanent Secretary, Noel Lavery, and members of the Management Board will provide us with an introductory briefing. If members want to refer to the Clerk's memo on page 145 of the pack outlining the structure of the department, membership of the board and possible topics for discussion at today's briefing. Okay. I'd like to welcome Noel Lavery, Permanent Secretary, and 4 heads of groups: Louise Ward Hunter, Norman Fulton, Robert Huey and David Small. And this briefing will be recorded by Hansard. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. A few remarks, if Chair you're content with that, and then happy to take questions. Thanks for the opportunity to present today and propose a brief overview of the new department, DAERA. The creation of the department, along with the voluntary exit, I believe represents the most radical change in government here in 40 years, so it is a new department. A broad portfolio covers a range of functions of the former DOE, DCAL and DARD, not all DOE functions, not all the DCAL, but we'll cover that. And I know that there are sessions planned with my individual group heads in the coming weeks. In terms of budgets nearly 265 million, but that's separate from the annual disbursement of 260 million of European funding, primarily to the agriculture and agri-food sector. Broad range of services, customers and stakeholders, over 70 locations across Northern Ireland, and in terms of the A to Z, Chair, it's air quality to zoo licensing. That's the A to Z. That's the breadth of what the department covers. Very challenging. I'm very conscious the new departments come into being at a very challenging time for farm incomes, and last year total farm income falling from 312 million to 183, and that 183 includes agricultural subsidies. No? Yeah. I'm conscious a significant number of farm businesses have been impacted by events over which they have no control: global market volatility, exchange rate and international trade issues. And on the first full day in office, the Minister made it clear, concerned and understands the difficulties farmers face and would be devoting full attention to addressing them, and that she intends to work with the Economy Minister to help open new market opportunities for our local industry, and maybe Robert will maybe speak about that later. Questions on that. The department also provides practical on-the-ground help support through CAFRE, College of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and our primary interventions are through the Rural Development Programme, which basically is our suite of grant programmes on the agricultural side, and I'll mention a bit more about that later. The department plays a significant role in helping to address the very significant challenges around the protection and improvement of the environment, and in championing the needs of 37% of our population who live in rural areas. Chair, it's absolutely no secret that we're facing significant budgetary pressures, and we're currently implementing an ambitious programme of fundamental change to become more modern, digitally driven, to meet the needs of our customers. And Chair, my apologies for not introducing my colleagues at the start, but I'm going to do that as I go along. If I could move on to the structures, and then the 4 main groups of the department, which are led at grade 3 level. So we've got an Environment, Marine and Fisheries group led by David. And in terms of what that includes, so we have a new Marine and Fisheries division, which includes policy and delivery for both sea and inland fisheries, and again very conscious of economic challenges faced by those in the fishing industry. On the policy side, there's Regulatory and Natural Resources and Environmental Policy Division. Responsibilities there include environmental reform, water policy, very significant waste issues and strategy legislation, infrastructure, climate change, carrier bag levy, and we have an environmental farming and agri-emissions unit in there too. David's responsibilities also include being Chief Executive of Northern Ireland Environment Agency, an executive agency of the department and its 2 operating divisions. The Resource Efficiency Division includes waste management, industrial pollution and radiochemical inspectorate, environmental crime, regulation, land and water regulation, and a natural environment division including country parks, biodiversity, conservation designation, protection, countryside issues, coast and landscape. Chair, just want to emphasise there are very significant challenges on the environment side of the department involving water quality, reducing waste going to landfill, improving habitat and landscape quality, reducing waste crime and protecting the marine environment, and many of the challenges originate from EU directives. Chair, on the food and farming side, a group led by Norman Fulton. This comprises Caffrey, which I've already mentioned. Caffrey's 3 campuses, Greenmount, Loughry and Enniskillen, and it includes education and development. It's led by Chief Agricultural Officer Martin McKendry. The whole issue of CAP policy, economics and statistics, a food and farm policy division. We have a science, evidence and innovation policy division led by our Chief Scientific Advisor, Alistair Carson. And then there's a whole area of EU area-based schemes, Pillar 1, including inspection and control and delivery of the Pillar 2 schemes under the Rural Development Programme and food and farming side. Veterinary Service and Animal Health Group, led by Chief Veterinary Officer Robert Huey. This covers trade, including important work on opening new markets for the industry, and Robert is in the lead on that. Animal health and welfare policy, including the Secretariat to the TB Strategic Partnership. Enzootic and epizootic disease, field delivery, epidemiology, and surveillance. And Robert, that's not I know that's a very broad sweep there, but I'm just trying to be brief for the committee. Louise Ward-Hunter is in charge of Central Services and Rural Affairs Group. On the Rural Affairs side, we've brought rural policy and delivery together, including the leader element of the RDP, responsible for digital HR corporate services. We've slightly changed the role of the Finance Director of the Department, and Graham Wilkinson will be responsible for finance, performance and estates. And we have an ambitious programme of investment plan for the estate and working closely with the Asset Management Unit in the SIB, and I know Louise will be briefing you on that when she's briefing you. In terms of the Forest Service is an executive agency of the Department led by Chief Executive Malcolm Beattie, and no doubt you'll be getting a briefing from Malcolm. That covers woodland development, forest management, plant health and wind energy development, and again that's a very quick nip over at a high level just for the committee. Chair, could I highlight, in order to deliver policies and outcomes for the Minister, we've structured it so that policy and delivery functions are together under a group head. So we've got environment, policy and delivery, we've got food and farming policy and delivery, we've got animal health and welfare policy and delivery, we've got rural policy and delivery together within functional areas. And we're focused, however, on the need to work across the department and indeed across government on the alignment of policies, for instance, helping the agriculture industry to grow, become more resilient, while protecting and improving the environment and meeting our environmental obligations for future generations. And just to say, so there are 2 executive agencies, Forest Service and NIEA, which operate in accordance with the regulatory framework for executive agencies. In terms of non-departmental public bodies, but the Agri-Food and Bioscience Institute, the Livestock and Meat Commission for Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland Fisheries Harbour Authority, Agricultural Wages Board for Northern Ireland, and we have one advisory body, Council for Nature Conservation Countryside, whose aim is to provide independent advice to the department. Just if I could just briefly talk about AFBI, which is very much our largest NDPB, and we work with AFBI to specify and agree an annual work programme. It covers on Robert's side analytical and diagnostic scientific testing, and mainly on Norman's side, but across the department on research and development. And AFBI is key to our emergency response requirements. The scientific services are delivered on a statutory basis. They underpin and support the achievement of a wide range of policy objectives across the department. AFBI's budget is around 36 million, and we will be bringing forward estate management and development proposals. AFBI's core purpose, Chair, since its inception 10 years ago, was to provide research-based evidence that is vital for good policy making and driving technological advance to underpin the competitiveness of the industry, and also key, as I've said, to our emergency response capability. I think it would be important to highlight that this week AFBI's new Chief Executive, Professor Elaine Watson, has started with the Institute. And no doubt you'll be seeking a briefing from AFBI in due course. Chair, if I just also say the Department is also co-sponsoring the co-sponsor with the Department of Communications, Energy and Natural Resources in the Republic of Ireland for one North-South implementation body, the LOCHS Agency. Funding is provided through the two departments, and the governing legislation confers the following functions. So it's the promotion and development of Lough Foyle and Carlingford Lough for commercial and recreational purposes, the management, conservation, protection, improvement of development of inland fisheries in Foyle and Carlingford areas, development and licensing of aquaculture and development of marine tourism. On budgets, so the Executive in December 15 agreed a resource budget of 216 million for the department. Our allocation amounted to about 12 million reduction. So that's about 5.7% on the allocations of the previous departments. Capital allocations around 49 million. Just going back, the DARD budget was reduced by 30 in 15-16, with some core bids met in relation to TB and our investment in LIPIS and IT. In terms of the impact of the budget cuts and the voluntary exit, NICS is downsized by about 14%. We're about 16%. AFBI about 22%. And the pay bill saving is about £14 million, equivalent of about 420 staff in the core department. Leaves us with about 3,000 staff, 44% admin, 49% professional, technical, specialists, and 7% industrial. And we currently have 12 DERA direct offices. Chair, given the budgetary constraints that we're facing, I have established headcount limits to reflect affordability. I'm not sure the absolute percentage, but circa 55% of the budget is staff costs, so that's necessary. Department's embarked on an ambitious programme of relocation to rural areas. In the former DARD, we completed the relocation of Fisheries and Forest Service. We're in the process of constructing a new headquarters in Ballykelly. The procurement contract for that was signed in March. A key issue for us now is the staff transition for that. There will be a capacity for 600 posts at Ballykelly, which will be filled with the transferring from other parts of the NICS. Consequently, there will be a high turnover of staff, and we've developed a plan to manage the transition. As I said earlier, important for me to ensure that we work across the department, identify synergies. We've developed a formal change programme covering inspection and advisory services, customer contact, on Robert's side, the veterinary service target model, and reviewing our corporate services. In addition to that, there's changes that we'll need to make on our scientific services, we have scientific services in AFBI and were commissioned by the department, and in what was the old DARD and in the old DOE. I'm also instigating pilot work on how best we can leverage synergies on the management of forests and country parks, which has now come together. Very aware, Chair, that the Executive published this programme for government for consultation. and FM, DFM have stated government will be engaging with local government, private sector, voluntary community sectors to establish a fully developed plan. And the outcomes framework is headed Improving Wellbeing for All, Tackling Disadvantage and Driving Economic Growth. We believe the Department has a significant role to play. In fact, the Minister has made it clear she believes very strongly the Department has a significant role to play across a number of outcomes and indicators. And just on the economic side, the agri-food sector, according to Norman Statistics, represents about $5 billion of annual turnover and 6% of private sector employment. If you look at the NIFTA figures, when you take the whole supply chain, that's estimated by NIFTA to be 20%. So it's a very significant driver. So you could see that the Department and the work of the Department could contribute to a significant number of indicators on the economic side: skills, proportion of people at work, size of the economy, competitiveness, and improving regional balance, reducing unemployment. Currently, that we'll be the lead with David on the environmental side on the following indicators: increasing environmental sustainability, increasing household recycling, improving air quality. And there are a broad range of other indicators that the Department can be involved in terms of, on health, and a number of others which we can talk to the Department. Crime, on the waste sector, crime is a major issue. Mental health, the attractiveness of the destination and what we can contribute to that. So we believe the Department to have a broad role. Chair, in preparation for the new Department, colleagues and I have been working on a draft vision, outcomes and indicators performance measures, strategic plan 2020 and a draft business plan for the current year. Of course, subject to the Minister's approval and have to be aligned with the programme for government. But I want to assure the committee that work is well advanced. And just turning again to the Pillar 1, Pillar 2 on the agricultural side, where basic payments are a key element of the Department's responsibilities. The rollout of the RDP represent an immediate key policy instruments available to the Department, and we need to work with industry as we roll out those, but also to enhance resilience as we go forward in coping with the challenges while exploiting the opportunities for growth. It's important that the RDP delivers sustainable outcomes, and we need to take a holistic view. There are a number of elements of the RDP already underway and launched. It's planned the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, a key element identified by the Agri-Food Strategy Board, will be launched in the autumn, subject to our approvals. It also includes the business development groups that are up and running and the leader element of the programme. The Agri-Food Strategy Board also recommended a land use strategy, and that work is nearly complete and is led by Dr. John Gilliland. On David's side, the main programme interventions are a £100 million environmental farming scheme, again part of the RDP, through which we'll seek to deliver a range of environmental obligations related to water quality, biodiversity. There's a £2.6 million environment fund funded by the carrier bag levy, which supports a range of projects on environmental priorities, and the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund is worth about €18 million. Chair, sorry I've gone on so long. I just thought it was important to give the committee a broad sweep of the Department and where we are. Chair, the Minister has emphasised to me that she will want to work closely with the committee. I know you've met with her and the Deputy Chair this week. I'm conscious you have a busy programme of work before the summer recess with briefings from my colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity, and colleagues and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Noel. And obviously we have no issue with you taking a bit of time. There's a lot involved in that, and we are a new committee and we need to get, I suppose, as much information as we can. There's quite a number of issues have arisen out of your report there for myself, but I suppose one of them, and this is more of a comment rather than a question, I would hope that the Department will work closely with local councils, because given that there are a number of responsibilities that come under the Department that will pass on to local councils, and particularly thinking of waste management and the challenges that face local government in relation to that. So I do think that a good working relationship with local government would be a good move forward. I know there were many decisions taken in the last mandate that affected local government by different ministers, and local government was not really taken properly into consideration. And we should try to work more together, I would say, rather than always being in opposition to each other. I would be a wee bit concerned, I know you did address this to a certain degree around the programme for government, that all the indicators are around environment and nothing there really for farming or rural, but I would like to think that that will be tied down a wee bit more. I would just have some concern around that for the rural dwellers and for the farmers.
Okay, I'll respond to that. I'll bring David in on the environment side. I guess, as I said, I mean, the Deputy First Minister emphasised the need to consult and work with local government on the programme for government. In terms of, Chair, the leader element, that is obviously works through the LAGs, and the LAGs are bringing forward the projects and that, so there's a close contact with local government there. On the indicators, I mean, the point I was trying to make is there are, and the indicators are at a level, the agri-food sector makes a very, very significant contribution to the economy. And so the primary producer and the processors. So absolutely, I fully agree with your point, and will be a key driver on the economic side. On rural dwellers, there are a number of indicators on rural, which would impact on rural policy. I'll bring you in on that in a second. So, but yes, absolutely. Very keen to work together with local government. David, on your side, comments?
Yeah, just on the environment side, as I see it, we have a very strong contribution to make in terms of our work around the environment. I do want to work with stakeholders. I do want to work with the various partner organisations who we've already had close contact with. We've had some very useful meetings with a range of environmental NGOs, and they're clearly keen to work with us within the department, and I'm very keen to work with them. Through the Environment Fund, we already deliver financial support to a number of those organisations to deliver specific projects that will deliver against environmental priorities, and I see a lot of scope and potential to do more of that, and clearly want to work with the farming industry in terms of how we deliver our regulatory role in terms of farming.
If I may, I think, Chair, that if you look at the needs of rural dwellers, that when you have those very high level and important outcomes, issues that span everything from jobs, the economy, health, giving our young people the best start in life and so forth, clearly they impact as much on rural dwellers as they do on urban dwellers, and I think that will be part and parcel of the integrated approach that DAERA would wish to take, working alongside other departments who would be in the lead for those outcomes and indicators, to demonstrate our interest in that and to support where we can, which of course there is now a statutory base for.
And I'm assuming obviously the new legislation will be used in terms of holding all of the other departments to account on the rural proofing.
Yes, well, the legislation received, the Rural Needs Act received royal assent on the 9th of May, and in terms of when it would come into effect, the original plans were that it would apply initially from 1st of June next year to government departments, and from the 1st of June of the following year to local authorities. Clearly that is a matter that we will want to work through with the Minister in terms of our approach to be able to support that, to support the needs that are there in other departments in the first instance. But it does cohere with what you said yourself around the issues about local authorities as well, and our local councils, who I have to say are already in many ways showing the way in some of these matters.
Thank you. Kiva?
Thanks for the very comprehensive briefing. There's an awful lot covered there. I just want to pick up on one or two points. You mentioned the voluntary exit scheme and the downsizing within the department. I was wondering if there's any particular challenges being faced by the loss of very skilled or particular expertise within the department at that level.
Well, our colleagues will have their own views, and I'll ask them to comment. Yeah, I mean, frankly, yes. I think, given the way the scheme operated, you've lost people with very significant years of experience and some technical experience. However, it's our job to deliver public services and to advise the Minister, and we need to get on with it. These are challenges, and it's up to us to be more efficient. We're looking at areas where we can change what we do, but they are significant challenges, but our job's to get on and deliver. Yeah. Robert?
My own area in policy, we lost 3 of our 4 grade 7 principal officers, 107 years of experience, I think, between the 3 of them. And you can't lose that and not notice it. We lost Ian McKee, Andrew Kell and Dennis Savage, 3 experienced officers who appeared before this committee on a very regular basis. Of course, you pull people up and you develop more people, but it's bound to leave a gap. And that, along with our transition to Ballykelly over the next few years, is going to give us a significant difficulty with maintaining both our historical knowledge as well as getting people into the right posts at the right time. So there's a big job of work to do there, but we have plans and we're working on them.
Yeah, I would just add to that, within my own group on the environment side, you know, we, in a similar way, we lost key people from important senior levels, and those individuals are hard to replace. We also lost a number of specialist individuals, scientists, technical colleagues, you know, again, who had very specialist, special knowledge, and again, that's hard to replace. I have identified a number of posts that I regard as critical, and I will be making arrangements to fill and recruit for those posts, but doing that within a very constrained headcount limit. But as Noel says, we need to manage those challenges.
Yeah. And you know, the individual group heads will have their own budgets and how they manage that, and then to prioritise what the needs are. And this is the world we're in, and we just need to get on with it.
Thanks for that. The only other thing I would like to pick up on at this point is you mentioned the importance of the agri-food sector, obviously, and in terms of the Going for Growth strategy and the Agri-Food Strategy Board, Dard and Deddy had joint responsibility. Is the collaboration ongoing now between DAERA and the economy?
It will be, and the Ministers emphasised the importance of that too.
Thank you. Robin?
Thank you very much, Chair. Folks, come back to, I suppose, a legacy issue from the old committee, TB.
Yes.
Where are we on TVR?
Chair, Robert?
TVR will be commencing its 3rd year later in the month. It has, as you are well aware, Robin, it's a research project. It's not a pilot. It's not something that we can roll out across the entire province. It has been hugely beneficial for a large number of reasons. My staff have learned a large number of skills, and we've tested a large number of concepts which we'll be allowed, we hope to be able to apply across our new strategy whenever we start to implement it. I know there's frustration in that results haven't been published, except for the very basics of the numbers and that sort of thing, and many badgers we've caught, that sort of thing. But you have to just work with me on that. I haven't seen the results of the analysis of the results yet myself, and I think that's important because we have to maintain the integrity of this as a piece of research, and if results are published halfway through, then that could influence the further years of the programme. But I can reassure you that the only people who will have seen the results are the 2 scientific experts on the TB Strategic Partnership Group, and they will take them into consideration in their continuing work. So that work will make its way into their thinking. But you know, I understand your frustration, but we have to keep the scientific results under wrap until the end of the project, or it would the research. Otherwise, it runs the risk of undermining the entire piece of work.
Chair, if I could just follow up, and I suppose, when do you expect those results, Robert? Because I'm aware now, I think even from your own paper, TB's at the 2nd highest level we've ever had in Northern Ireland since 2006. So, and if there is no, if we get through all this TVR research project rather than a pilot, I think you're saying now, but I was under the assumption there was a pilot.
It never was, Robin. You used the word pilot, I used the word research all the way through this.
But I think this can down to 30 million into a TB project. If this 3-year research project comes out and shows nothing, where are we?
Where we'll be is hopefully implementing a whole new strategy for TB in Northern Ireland. The group have now been working for 18 months. I'm frustrated that we haven't got the report out yet, but I'd rather get it right than get it quick. I've been very impressed with how diligently the group have worked. And remember, the group are not being paid for their work, and they signed up for a day a month, and there are times when they're working 2 and 3 days a week on this for no pay. We have a very good group with a good broad basis, with 2 farmers and 2 scientists and the chair. And I sit on the group as an advisor and ex officio member, but I do not have any veto or influence over what they will agree. I'm very encouraged about the work they've done so far. The report is almost finished. It's at the stage where it's going through an economic assessment, a review by a behaviouralist, a human behaviouralist, I would say, rather than an animal behaviouralist, and a scientific review, externally peer reviewed. The report is going to be costed because a plan without resource is a piece of paper, and there will be a implementation plan when the report is published, hopefully this autumn. So a lot of work has been done. I am as concerned as you are about TB. I'm concerned that we're spending £30 million on something we could better spend within agriculture in Northern Ireland. I understand and have a lot of empathy with the farmers who are broken down with TB. 7% of herds currently broken down with tuberculosis in Northern Ireland. It's not acceptable to anyone, and we have to do something different. We've been doing the same thing now for about 50 years. 1959 it started. The current scheme's the same age as me, and we have to do something radical and something different. And I'm confident that the report will give us that.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Harold.
Madam Chair, this is beginning to get a very interesting committee. I do come from a background, Kilkeel, Northern Ireland's largest fishing port, so very interesting stuff coming from that, and also farming connection. And should I say, what was mentioned in Carnforth Lough, I was a Carnforth Lough Commissioner for the sake of declaration of interest in the past, so interesting there too. Just a few questions there from it. 18 million fisheries fund, when will it be allocated? 12 mile, we're responsible for inshore fisheries. Is that up to a 12-mile radius inside? Would that include cod fishing? Is cod fishing outside of a 12-mile or inside? There's a lot of issues around the fishermen with the scientific evidence is now showing there's a lot of cod out there, but fishermen are still finding it difficult to fish, catching prawns, having to throw their live catch overboard, the losses there. Also, are we responsible for harbour infrastructure? For example, plans in a large Kilkeel harbour at some point in time, we would be responsible for that. Waste management, moving on to waste management, where are we at as regards the Hightown incinerator? Interested to know what's going on there. There's also on the agriculture side, a bit concerned about a forum set up some time ago, supply chain forum, that has only met once with no results. So I'd like to hear where we're at on that. I think that's it. Thank you.
If I'd lead off on some of those and bring our colleagues in on the supply chain forum, obviously that was brought in by Darren Minister O'Neill, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the new Minister about that. Obviously, the Minister has already said that fairness in the supply chain is a big issue, and she's already made that clear. So in terms of what happens next, we'll have to come back to the committee, and Norman, you'll want to discuss that with the Minister. On Kilkeel Harbour, and I've met with people involved in that plan development myself last year. We would have one element. The Fisheries Harbour Authority actually own the asset of the harbour. I don't actually think we have the varies to develop it, but I'm not sure, Mr. McKay, just absolutely not sure. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. But if that development is to go ahead, I think there are a lot of different elements that need to come together, including local government and the private sector. but I have met with those who were proposing that. Do you want to pick up the other issues?
Yeah, you made reference to the Hightown incinerator proposal. I think that's probably the proposal being led by ARC21,
Yes.
Waste Infrastructure Group. The former Environment Minister, as you probably know, issued an opinion to refuse on the planning application, I think last September. And since then, that case has now been referred to the Planning Appeals Commission. A hearing is planned in October of this year. And that's really where the planning application sits. It has been referred to the Planning Appeals Commission for a full hearing. I think from a departmental point of view, we still see the value in the project. We do need to build and expand our waste infrastructure within Northern Ireland. So we still see it as an important project, but it is currently at appeal.
Can I just say on Kilkeel Harbour, I don't know if you're any more up to date on that, but having to come back to the committee just with a note on that.
Yeah.
Ms McKee, sorry, I'm not fully up to speed on.
Yeah.
And similarly, you raised specific issues around cod and the difficulties, challenges being faced. Again, I don't have the detail on that for you, but if you like, we could provide a short written brief just setting out the position.
Chair, could I come back in on that
Yes.
again? And just, I suppose another reason I sat in Warrenpoint Harbour for till May this year, and major concerns to realise that we are, or they were shipping waste, which could have been incinerated, shipping it to Sweden and elsewhere, good for Warrenpoint Harbour. But looking at it from an environmental point of view, we're burning up fossil fuel, we're defeating the whole project and the whole process. So I think something seriously needs to be dealt with there.
There are major challenges around waste infrastructure, and you're right. I mean, across various sectors, waste is being exported by ship out of Northern Ireland to incinerators in other countries. And if we can develop an appropriate waste infrastructure here, then we could avoid that happening.
Thank you. Oliver?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's nice to see you again. I just could see things here. One of them is Rathlin Island. We discussed this before at looking at Rathlin and special status for it because of its proximity and also the conditions that's laid down in Rathlin for farming. And this is affecting badly the payments to farmers on the island. For example, you can't cut grass, etc. There's a lot of conditions there, and I would ask you to look at that again because farmers are being penalised on their payments because of the conditions on Rathlin and the farming conditions. I would ask you to look at that again. On the rural needs bill, the chair brought that up, and it was very interesting listening to it. But it worries me a little bit when the rural needs bill comes in and we're talking 218. 217?
Well, the plan was 217 for
217.
in terms of its implementation for departments.
Well, we need to have something in place now because councils are putting their community plans together. And if we are not discussing with councils now, prior to the implementation of the rural needs bill, we're going to be outside of the bill. A lot of the things that councils may decide to put in their community plans. This could cause a problem.
I may respond to that, Chair. What I would say, Mr. Rickmull, is that colleagues are already beginning to engage with councils to understand what they might need from us as former members of the former DARD committee. ARD committee will have recalled when we were taking this process through that the Act would confer certain responsibilities, statutory duties on DAERA itself, and that was about providing advice and guidance and information in order to bring the legislation into effect, and that was around cooperation and exchange of information. So I think that that process is in the very early stages. Quite clearly, it was important to us to get our new minister in and to begin to engage with the minister around that. But I understand the point that you're raising about the timeliness of this engagement.
Yes, it's just
Okay.
to get that factored into council and in their policies.
Yeah.
That they'll be drawing up the policies out of the community plan. If we're outside of that there, and if they're not if they haven't bought into it fully, it could affect their policies going forward. Last thing is genetic research. A lot of talk of that, and interesting in the last mandate. How is that progressing in the future of farming?
Just on that, I mean, that was one, there was a genetics element, was a proposal that we should look at that as part of the Agriculture Strategy Board report. And I think, Robert, were you and I both down?
Yes, we both went.
Yeah, in terms of what's gone on in Cork, and the name has currently escaped me, which is terrible.
Lure Park.
Yes, Lure Park.
Yeah.
Norman, just where those proposals are?
Yeah, industry is actually currently working to draw proposals for effectively a centralised data hub in which we draw data from existing sources of information, for example, NIFAS system, information on animals going through slaughterhouses, etc. So pull it all together into a centralised data hub from which then farmers would be able to extract information on effectively the generic merit of individual animals within their herd. So that's a project that has currently been taken forward by industry, drawing up a business case, looking at the model, how it would be funded, how it would progress, and how it could be used by farmers to actually inform their breeding decisions. So that is in play at this point.
I know the last time that got to the stage of being practically be able to genetically combat disease in cattle. And I know within the dairy industry that, you know, in the name of sires, that there. How are we getting on with that there to combat disease? And the cost that we've already alluded to it, how much we're paying per year in compensation.
That sounds like me. The primary reason for this project, this programme, is to allow a farmer to select both his cows and his bull on the basis of their generic merit, rather than the beauty parade that happens at either a stock show or a stock sale. So the farmer, rather than just having to judge by his own eye, can have a piece of paper in front of him which tells from the genetic makeup of that animal what it is likely to do. And they have found a few pointers on the genome which allow you to say how much milk a cow will produce, how much beef it will put on each day. And the beauty of the system is that they've turned that into a financial number. So they can say, if you use that bull is likely to leave you an animal worth £100 more in profit margin than the baseline one. So that's the basic idea here, and it's a game changer, to put it mildly. The other issue then is that in amongst this work, they've also found markers within the genome that seem to confer some resistance to TB. And this is a holy grail, of course, that we'd all love. We've all suspected for many years, working in this field, that different strains of cattle perhaps had different sensitivities to Mycobacterium bovis, the bug that causes TB, and therefore more likely to get the disease. And they've got to the stage of putting an indicator against some bulls that if you use this bull, you might be breeding animals that are more resistant to TB. You'll see lots of words like might in there. Now, that's the stage it's at. You can buy a catalogue that will have a disease resistance measurement in its makeup, but it's work that's been done in Glasgow, work done here in AFBI, and it's still ongoing. So, you know, it's something we want to see, Oliver, but we're not quite there yet.
And just to confirm, Chair, through the Chair, it was the Irish Cattle Breeders Federation in Cork who were leading the work in the south on this.
Yeah.
I know when we were in Edinburgh, that research was practically done and they were ready to make it public. But to my mind, that's never been made public yet. That whole research information, it was funded from here as well as other bodies funded that within the Veterinary College in Edinburgh. Should we not be getting that out there now to allow farmers to avail of these bloodlines? And it would help us combat what we talked about, I think it was 60 million you said there, Robert, on TB. So we would need to be looking at that to work alongside our fight against TB to see if we can get that compensation figure down.
It's part of the answer, but as this committee and its predecessors will start to become aware, there's no simple answer to the problem of TB. I think I'm back with you next week, Chair, I think, and we can take this on into the detail.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Edwin?
Thank you. Madam Chair, NIEA, they're very good at pursuing farmers. I'll give you an example. A gentleman who's down with TB, herds closed, so we can't sell. So the stock numbers go up. Good practice would indicate that he shouldn't be renting buildings elsewhere because you want to restrict the disease. NIA come round for an inspection and find that he is point something of a livestock unit over the regulation and implement a fine against that individual. Now, there's one part of the department not talking to another part of the department to actually say this guy has actually engaged in good practice, and it takes him marginally outside of the rules that have been set up here. You know, when are we going to get sensible, practical implementation of the European Union regulations? Because NIEA as an organisation has gold-plated those regulations throughout.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know the detail of the case. Don't know when it happened. We have a job to do within NIEA, and I don't think anyone would argue with that. I mean, we do have a role to play and a job to do. I agree with you that we need to be joined up with other colleagues within the department. I agree that when we do and deliver that role, that we need to do it in a proper, reasonable, professional way. We certainly do have to interpret the regulations. I know you've made the point that we gold plate all of the regulations. I'm not sure that's right, but there may be issues in terms of how we interpret and how we implement. So I do think we have a job to do. I think we need to be very careful in terms of how we deliver that role. And certainly, since taking up the role of Chief Executive of the agency, it's something that I'm very, very aware of and something that I want to try and address. We need to deliver a role with industry in a professional and reasonable way. If there's scope to work with a farmer or any other business in terms of implementation or potential breaches of regulations, then we should look at that scope, and we should be as reasonable as we can in terms of what we're trying to deliver. I don't like to think that any inspectors would be going beyond that. Now, I know I've heard lots of anecdotal stories about how one inspector behaved on a particular visit. I'm going to work very, very hard around culture issues within the agency, and certainly in terms of how we work with colleagues within the department. I'm also trying to reinstigate discussions with the Ulster Farmers Union around the potential of some sort of memorandum of understanding. And I think there's lots of good stuff that we could work together on, that we could incorporate within an MOU. So I'm not saying that everything is perfect. I'm not going to claim that, but I am very committed to ensuring that, whilst we have a role to play and a job to do, we will do it in as reasonable a way as we can.
Just in terms of work we're doing on inspections, and other colleagues want to make any other comment?
Yeah, there's nothing new about our attempts to try and approach the problems of regulation, good regulation, red tape challenge. This is an opportunity for us to work better together across the new department. There's been reviews, and the reviews are now turned into action. But there's nothing new about this and trying to do better regulation. We have a responsibility as a regulator. There's nothing that annoys the honest, good farmer more than to see a neighbour not keeping the regulations. So we have a role in regulating, and we don't apologise for that. But your point is around the appropriate implementation of the regulations, and that's what we try to do. If you take regulation on to good regulation, on to its conclusion sometimes, the objective of all inspections is always compliance. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get everybody to comply with the regulations. And when it comes to doing that, we are very proportionate in the way we do it. You know, we do work on advice and advising farmers, whether it's in TB, animal health line, or right across the department. We work on advice first, and it's only then that, when advice is ignored, that other actions have to be taken to ensure compliance, which is what we're doing. And in my line, which often gets publicity, the people who end up in court are those who have gone through that process and haven't responded to advice, both oral and written. So it's a long process. We are aware of the need to look for synergies, to try and cut down the number of inspections farmers get. The new European regulation coming on my side in animal health is very much about earned autonomy and not carrying out inspections on farmers who have been consistently compliant. So there's a lot of good things that we can do in there, but it's a work in progress, and always will be. You know, getting to the right level of inspections, getting the most out of the synergies we have across our new department, is a work in progress, and it's one that we're all determined to do something about. We have no option. We don't have the resource anymore. It's simple.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you, Robert. The feedback that I get from farmers who have went through the inspection process is that it is with great relish that people are looking for faults and comparing the inspectors to the redcoats who find your elderly person 4 inches outside of a white line and are happy to slap the £90 ticket on them. That these guys are actually out there doing their best to hurt the farmer, and that's very much how the feeling is. And if we compare that to other parts of NIEA, you know, we had a landfill site operating outside of Londonderry, and how much waste was tipped in that landfill site? What's the estimate at the minute?
It's an estimate, it's about 900,000 cubic metres.
So nearly 1 million tonnes of waste can be tipped. And one part of this organisation that you say has a job to do is rigorously enforcing against individual farmers and finding them for the most minuscule faults that they can come across, and at the same time of almost 1 million tonnes of landfill. Now, what is the potential liability for that waste?
Well, the case you describe, Edwin, is a very, very difficult situation for us. It's an illegal landfill that was operating. We were not aware of it. As soon as we became aware of it, we began to put in place our enforcement and regulatory activities. There are current prosecutions ongoing in terms of what was happening at that site. And we are looking at the options for actually dealing with the waste that's there. So, you know, we have a range of prosecutions and a large number of enforcement actions running against the waste industry and various other industries and sectors. So I accept that we have a role to play, and we try to fulfil that role in terms of agriculture and the agricultural industry, but we do the same across the other sectors. Just, I suppose, one final...
Understand the credibility of the organisation that didn't notice 1 million tonnes of waste being tipped underneath its nose is hugely diminished as a consequence. And the credibility of it in the public is extremely low as a consequence of that.
Well, you make it sound very...
There's a huge public burden going to be put upon the taxpayers.
And it was criminal. What happened at the site was criminal. It was criminal activity. It was incentivised by very significant financial gain. You make it sound very simplistic that there's 1 million tonnes that we didn't notice. I mean, this was very, very cleverly done. The waste was being recycled. Elements were going through recycling and fulfilling all the requirements in terms of recycling. The stuff that should have been going to landfill was not being properly dealt with, and it was being buried at night time. This was on a site which had operated as a legitimate, authorised, regulated landfill site, authorised and regulated by local authorities. So the fact that there was further infilling going on was not a surprise or shock to local people, who probably knew something was happening, but it had always happened at that site, so it didn't seem odd. Our inspections did not identify it, but it's because it was very, very cleverly done. The waste was being buried at night, it was being covered, it wasn't visible on the occasions when we were inspecting. But as soon as we became aware, we have acted, we have prosecutions ongoing, we are pursuing our enforcement obligations, as we do with other sectors. So I'm not trying to defend it entirely. We are now responding the way we should do.
Is there still material coming in from ROI being dumped on illegal sites, and we're picking that up?
We have come across a number of other illegal sites. This is a fairly widespread problem. There's a lot of money to be made in this, which is the incentive. Some of our investigations suggest some of that waste has its origins in the south, but not just in the south. So it is a very, very difficult and challenging issue to deal with. Dealing with waste crime is something that we're trying to respond to. I now have a dedicated environmental crime unit. I have a dedicated financial investigation team. They are very professional people within those teams. And as I say, we are taking very strong, robust enforcement action and where appropriate, prosecutions in the various cases that we're dealing with. But it is a really difficult challenge that we're trying to deal with.
I see the point where I'm coming from. You're good at going after an indiscretion, but not so good at going after the criminals.
Well, I understand the comparison, but we are going after the criminals as well.
I think coming back, to Edwin's original point, really what he's asking for here is we have a new department here that maybe can work together better in terms of addressing this in a more productive way, because it does seem, I suppose, a bit to anybody looking at it from a common sense point of view, when you have the minister going to make banks to ask for leniency for farmers who can't sell their stock, and then we have another part of this department who are actually fining the farmer who is already in financial strife, and we're trying to assist. So I suppose it's just about trying to look at it in a more practical way, and if you can come back to the committee with something in regards to how that can be addressed within the department,
I understand the point.
There can be a practical, common sense approach taken to it.
Chair, just as has been said, we are seeking to improve what we're doing here, and our committee members will be aware of that and how we do inspections. And as Robert has said, we have a job of work to do. Be very concerned, Mr. Poots, about your comment on that culture. I'm not sure. I mean, I've been responsible for the NEIA for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I've had anecdotal comments about members of staff in various areas of departments I've worked in. It's not a David mentioned culture. I'd be very surprised if that was the culture, people seeking to target. I mean, that's not what we're about. We're about doing a regulatory job and doing it professionally.
But there is a cultural point in terms of how we deliver that rule, and if there is an issue in terms of poor culture, then I will want to address
David
it.
will address. Norman, want to come in?
Yeah, I think the broader issue as well, as Robert has said, is about compliance, and there's many ways to ensure that. I mean, we have the Farm Advisory Service actually specifically set up under CAP to actually help farmers comply and help them understand the cross-compliance obligations, and that's part of what that is about. But looking wider again, there's a simplification agenda at a European level to try and make sure that we have a more proportionate approach around CAP and CAP implementation, and there have been some initiatives flowing from that. The Commission is currently considering the responses to a simplification consultation that it had in the springtime, and expectation is that something will emerge from that later on in the year. So right from Europe, they are looking at the whole implementation of CAP and how it can be simplified, made more proportionate, including penalty regimes. But you know, it all comes down to compliance, and there are different ways of trying to achieve that, including the advisory functions, education.
On greenhouse gases, I see we've dropped 16% from 1990. What's the European Union's expectation?
I don't have the specific target figures, but there are specific targets set around climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. We're making progress. And
what are they?
I don't. Well, if you bear with me, I may have the figures, but
The UK one, Climate Change Act, which we're not subject to, is 80%.
Can we ask that you come back to Edwin on that?
yeah, we could come back on that point. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I think the target's reduced by 35% by 2025. I think that is, but we'll confirm that too.
If we don't meet that, we'll be fine.
No. I mean, we are actually on track. Well,
Our PFD target's 35%.
it was in the previous programme for government. I think it might have been 34%. I think we're well on track to actually achieve
The European target?
It was actually a PFG target under the last PFG.
There must be a European one as well.
I think the target actually comes from a climate change legislation, UK-wide climate change legislation, Climate Change Act 2008, which set out targets. So the target is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030, by 34% by 2020. So those are the targets that we're working towards.
And the course of work that was done, research work into what we're actually achieving in carbon capture in our agriculture, where are we with that? There's a course of work started a number of years ago in association with Chugas and the Scottish Research Department.
Yeah, there are various initiatives and programs running, you know, all geared towards either improving the science and the understanding. And there are greenhouse gas specific programs running, which is about managing and reducing greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture. So there's a lot of work underway, and some of that is underpinning the improvements that we've made, but there's more to do.
I think if we can come back to Edwin with specifics on what he's looking for there. Patsy?
Okay, thanks, Chair. And good to see you all. Mr. Lovely, back to your initial comment that you opened with, which I think is probably paramount here. And that was, I think if I got the figures right, the farm income crisis. And was it from 312 dropped to 183 million? Were those the figures you used?
Yep.
Now, it's back to that because many of us are out and about, and we've just come out of an election. Those of us who represent the rural areas, like we're getting asked about that consistently from active farmers and their families, indeed, the concerns that raised. Now, where are we with the department in terms of what support it can do, what the department's doing around what is, in essence, a major business and economic crisis facing us?
Well, I'll bring Norman in. In terms of the department's role, you mentioned these are global challenges and external market factors. Okay, in terms of the instruments that the department has, obviously it has single farm payments or the basic payments.
Yes.
It's got the rural development programme and the rollout of that. CAFRE's advice to farmers and working through business development groups, and rolling out those programmes. A lot of these issues are market issues, I'd have to say. They are market issues, and will be subject to European policy. So the situation is difficult. I think our job is within the levers that we have to assist the industry in terms of dealing with this issue and making it more resilient on market volatility. I'll bring Norman in just in case on the
Just on that point of clarity, just are those the only levers you have? the likes of the Rural Development Programme, Farm Diversification and CAFRA Advice. Is that it?
Well, in terms of the programmes and the funding we have, there's also the supply chain work that was referred to earlier. Those are the key developments. We've got education, we've got innovation. Those are the key programmes that we run in terms of market interventions, and then basic payment scheme, getting those basic payments out.
On that, the basic payment schemes now, off that 183 million, how much of that is comprised of basic payments or single farm payments, as they might have been whenever those figures were?
It's around about 235 million.
So there's a...
So in other words, the industry as a whole would have been in a loss-making situation without the benefit of cap support.
Sorry, what was that figure? 200 and what million?
About 235 million-ish there. That sort of
235 million. About 50 odd million of a loss without that intervention.
Right, yeah. Illustrates the scale of the challenge, and this is not unique to Northern Ireland. These are global influences we're facing. It drives from global markets and how the balance of supply across the globe, exchange rate effects.
Yes, I appreciate that.
So these are all things that really are national issues, and therefore not issues that we can have any influence upon, but what we seek to do is to try and help farmers respond to those issues, build resilience, and build for the future. Now, there are certain things that the Commission have been trying to do. They brought out a package in September, and from that, Northern Ireland received £5 million of support for the dairy sector. And we actually got an enhanced level of support because...
What way has that been disseminated, that support?
That was distributed in November to dairy farmers.
All right, okay.
That already is out there. The Commission have been looking at other ways. They have increased the limits on intervention intake for skim milk powder, and as if they will increase that again to try and put some sort of floor safety net into the market. But these are big global issues and very difficult to respond to.
Have there been any recent, as in, well, I suppose you had a minister up until the election, any recent meetings at or with the Commission or with Commissioner Hogan?
Well, there will be a council in Luxembourg in June expected. I mean, we're hearing that the Commission may well be coming forward with proposals, further proposals at that stage. The Commissioner has already indicated that he's prepared to raise the intervention intake limit for skim milk powder up to 350,000 tonnes.
What would be the benefit of that? Forgive me, I'm just... how does that work out in actual practical benefit?
It takes product off the market. Effectively, the European Union effectively purchased that product at the store and effectively removes it from the market, and therefore, in that way, attempts to try and put a bit of a firm base.
It's an intervention. Right, okay.
So yes, I mean, these are things that are the Commissioner.
I'm just going through the what-ifery here, and I don't think this isn't a politician asking the question here. It's not a political question, but if there were to be a Brexit and the implications of that intervention, if a decision is made in October, then potentially that could mean that aside from the monies that you've said have been paid out in support to farmers as it exists at the moment, any benefit from that exemption could be nullified then, if there was a Brexit, say.
I think this is really speculation at this stage.
I mean, if the decision is we're no longer members, then obviously you wouldn't derive any benefit from membership.
I don't think we want to get drawn into Brexit issues.
No, I don't think
if you don't mind.
No, well, I'm trying to work.
No, I understand, Mr. McLoone. I mean,
we can't. We are under
the
part of here in relation to the European referendum. So we have to be very
in terms of the premise of where you are, as Norman said, there was interventions previously for the Commission were a package, and raising intervention levels. I attended the Ag Council in March, and there's a lot of pressure on the Commission at that stage. Norman says there's one looks likely at the end of June. The Commissioner has said intervention levels, but there's no panacea here. I mean, these are very, very difficult global market issues. The other thing, which I should have said, and forgive me that I didn't, is incumbent on us on the trade side to do as much as we can to open new markets.
Yes.
But they're at the same time, I'm right in saying, Norman, overall dairy production is up across Europe.
It is. I mean, even in the first number of months of this year, European production is actually up 6%. Again, it adds to the problem of oversupply in the market. So, I mean, the Commissioner himself, he's operating under, I suppose, a fixed budget, effectively, a sustained budget, and he's very limited room to manoeuvre as well. So therefore, these are very difficult issues. If there were simple answers, short-term simple answers, we would have had them. And therefore, really, the focus has to be on looking, how can we help the industry become more resilient, more efficient, and better able to inevitable downturns that will happen. There's increasing volatility within our global agricultural markets. That's a simple fact of life that we now need to be able to deal with and to cope with, and to build that resilience into the industry so that it can take that on board.
Okay. Right. Thanks very much for that. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
David.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome, Noel and the team. I suspect we've got a fair bit to go through over the next 2 or 3 weeks with individual group questions, but I'm slightly concerned about the whole issue of business continuity. You've already referred to a 16% drop in staffing numbers through the VES. The paper refers to an ambitious plan to relocate. We might use a different adjective from ambitious over the concept of moving headquarters. And reference is made in it to the number of experienced staff. Well, it doesn't actually say experienced staff who will be lost. It says staff who will be coming in from other areas of NICS. Have you any indication from that, frankly, as to what DAERA will not be able to continue doing on the basis that there are certain functions which have to be continued, and with that loss of staff expertise? I mean, we've already had a 75% loss in a key area, not a 16% loss. There's some very, very significant challenges in how that will be managed.
Just to repeat my comments, Mr. Ford, I go back to, it's our job to deliver public services and deliver for the Executive and the Assembly and for the people here. I guess the paper wanted to reflect the honest situation, not trying to overplay it. We have a programme of work going on, led by Louise, in terms of things we could stop doing. It's always subject to Minister's priorities. I'm as much, the loss of expertise is a concern for us, but we can build that up. It's in the technical specialist areas where we probably feel it more acutely. In certain areas in CAFRE, for instance, in the last 12 to 18 months, we have cut programmes, and that's as a result. So we have had to do that. In our DAERA Direct offices, we've had to reduce opening times simply because we don't have the staff to man them for the same period. So we're looking at areas where we can stop, where we can be more efficient as well. Digital will also be part of our answer in terms of what we can do digitally. And, the more information we receive digitally, then the less manual handling, and also helps in terms of our inspections. So I think it's incumbent on us to become more efficient and seek to deliver the services. Loss of expertise is an issue for us. In terms of the Ballykelly move, we need a long transition. There will be a long transition to deal with the turnover of the staff, and we're managing that on a risk basis. I mean, for instance, on IT, which is a particular area of, no doubt when Louise is here and her team, the IT element of what we deliver is massive. There are expertise issues there and supply issues, as you well know. So managing that is also something we just need to be clever on how we do that and manage it on a risk basis. So basically that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, there are issues. We're seeking to see how we can be more efficient, seeking to see some areas where it can stop. We've already stopped some other things. And we just need to manage the expertise and build it up.
And when you talk about a transition programme for move, what is the current timescale for first moves into Ballykelly and last? Okay. And is NIEA going to move as well as the DART bit?
Okay, there's a few things there. So at present, we've already have people working in the northwest. I think 50, circa 50, working out of Orchard House and in Coleraine. Our aim is to have 250 people there by December 17, January 18, okay, and that's when Ballykelly would open. We would then be in a long transition. Effectively, we're swapping jobs for people, and we've already surveyed the rest of the civil service in terms of people who would be interested in doing that. That transition would take us out to 2029, and so that's managing that risk for us. In terms of will the David's side of the house, will that go to Ballykelly? That wasn't approved by the executive. That wasn't included in the approval. That would be a matter for the minister in terms of what her plans for the new department are. What was approved was the old DARD. Now, in practical terms, what we are moving is all corporate services and coordination functions, which would include some areas under David's command, will be going to Ballykelly. We'll take some practical, pragmatic asset management decisions around, offices that we have that are in the northwest where it makes more sense to get those out of Ballykelly. But in terms of anything further, I think it would have to go to the minister, and then, the minister would need to decide whether that's how she wants to operate the business. So what's the objective? The objective is a functioning headquarters, and that's what we need to do. It will be a long transition to make sure that we continue to deliver public services.
Thank you. George?
Thanks, Chair. Just to Noel and his team, you're all very key people in the department. And from our point of view, from the members' point of view, it'd be very, very, very useful to have your, all your contact numbers, email addresses, telephone numbers, and things like that there, because obviously most of us will be at some stage wanting to contact you about constituency issues. Very, very, very useful and helpful.
Work through the clerk.
Yeah, but from an individual point of view, if constituency issue have day to day, it'd be very, very useful to have key people like yourselves, telephone numbers or email addresses.
Happy to work through the clerk on that, absolutely.
That'd be great. Back to the Ballykelly issue, which is near and dear to my heart, yes, obviously.
Of course.
My constituency. From the contractor's point of view, is it the contractor has been appointed recently?
Yes, the contract was let in March, and Minister and Deputy First Minister, I think, was there a Deputy First Minister? I can't remember the First Minister was there or not, but announced that it was in the second half of March.
When does the build actually start then?
Build starts in August.
The pre-construction design is getting underway and to be completed by the end of September 2016, and then with the aim of construction taking place over that period up and out to October 2017, and then a handover after that by December 2017 So
Has it actually started yet?
Pardon?
Has it actually started yet?
The pre-construction design, I would certainly hope so.
The design has started. I don't think we haven't started on the ground.
Actual work itself, in the new building.
In terms of I don't think we've broken in terms of people getting on site. This is the design phase. So once that was awarded a couple of months ago, that's the phase they're now in.
We're on target, Mr. Robinson.
Right. The other point is that obviously the rest of the site had been sold fairly recently there. And my information is recently that security was taken away there.
will that be an issue for yourselves?
Not sure. It's a fair point. I used to have responsibility for the site in my time in First and Deputy First Minister's office. Not sure. I think obviously we'd be working with the contractor to ensure that the element of the site that we have is secure, as you would normally do in a procurement contract of this size.
Just brought attention very recently there. That
thank you for that, and we'll look into that.
Security firm, whoever has pulled out, or
yeah, well, so that would have been the security contracted through MDFM who ran the site. We'll check up on that, I'm sure.
Is there cooperation between yourselves and the new owner?
Oh, I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be.
Something worth.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Sydney.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to all your team for your briefing today. And I'll be brief. Most of my points have been touched on, but just going back to Ballykelly and the transition and the changeover of staff, which is a big issue and a lot of concerns here. You talk about a lot of staff who have lost a lot of experience, expertise. Obviously, there's a lot of upskilling to go on here for the new staff taking place, come from different areas, different departments. How will that affect, let's say, the customer at the coalface here? Do you see any big issues here with running the different areas within the department because of all this in the very short term? You talk about a period of transition, but what is that period of transition going to be that will affect actually the customer?
I think that we're up to 2029 was the period of transition, with a big move in the first 2 years. Yeah, there will be, an impact on our services. We are trying to minimise that as much as we can. At times, we will have to operate, people in dual posts. Say someone, in Norman's area, the post is going to Ballykelly. We may have to have a shadowing for a period to try and minimise that. But yes, there will be some impact on our services. I think the other point I would make is that with 3,000 staff and throughout, I think 70 locations in Northern Ireland, and this is the headquarters element. A lot of our services are distributed and frontline, which aren't out of the headquarters. So while we've articulated the challenges to us, we have lots of staff delivering lots of services and lots on the ground. On Norman's and on Robert's side.
Yes, sir. Just to say that in terms of the development of the plan, and in fact I've just been highlighting this through a submission to the Minister today, the approach that we've taken is that the grade 3s that you see in front of you here have led on with their own business areas what the phasing should look like in terms of what happens within all of the divisions and branches within divisions, and to look at what needs to happen. So a very detailed analysis has already gone into that. That's the whole bit about making sure that we keep on running and delivering the business at this time of change. You'd be aware, and I think it would be helpful perhaps for new members and for the new committee to know that a number of surveys have been conducted across the NICS in terms of evaluating people who wish to go, who wish to work in Limavady, and I think the important thing about that then is around making sure that those, and there's a substantial pool of people who are currently travelling to work in Belfast but who would prefer to be up in Ballykelly. And our point is, in terms of that, we need to begin to match that together. The phased approach that you've heard, the sort of the highlighted phased approach, which is 250 posts moving up by the end of 2017. But within that, we need to be able to distill then how are we managing that with those who would come in, and that does go to the issue around identifying with individuals who do not wish to relocate with their posts, what their aspirations are, what their skill set is, and making sure that the flow out and the flow in is doing the best for the department and for our
Where is that position?
continued work.
Questions we asked in the previous committee, where in the transfer of staff to Ballykelly, has all those staff, or most of them, been facilitated and been able to to move to Ballygally or to stay wherever they are the staff being facilitated?
Well, yes. I mean, the whole process. That the basis of the approach is, and it was something that had been stated strongly by the previous minister for Dard, Michelle O'Neill, was that no one would be forced to move, and that is as far as possible. Quite clearly, now the process that we're in is about working with individuals who don't want to go with their post when their post relocates, and identifying other suitable employment for them within the NICS, and that's exactly this process that I'm trying to describe. And I'll be happy when I come back up, I can talk in more detail to the
No, my
committee.
concern was that the expertise and experience here, I'm sure everyone's concerns are the same in relation to the big changeover of staff and what we have lost here, and it's been seen in other areas. So I would hope that in no way does this and sort of affect the good running of the department. And basically, as I keep calling, it affects and delays certain things being worked through the department. If that's the case, where we could be facing some of days ahead.
I once heard another substantial change project in the public sector described as flying the aeroplane while you're re-engineering it, and there is a bit of that is the practicality. But we're on that flight path. We are business as usual. The issue, I think, is about the pragmatic approach that we, as business leaders ourselves within the department, to be able to make sure that that continues to happen. And we will rely on our colleagues who will be the direct interface with staff who do not wish to relocate, to make sure that we can get that flow out and flow in. And you're quite right about the issue about building up skills. For example, you're not going to put a very junior member of staff in a really important area, leave alone, up in Ballykelly, before other more senior members are there around that person. So that's the sort of pragmatic. I don't want to get too much of the detail chart, but I mean, those are the sorts of sensible decisions that need to be taken.
There are lots of challenges in all of this, and we seek to manage our way through. Can I just come back? I missed a point actually in Mr. Ford's question, just which relates to yours, which is on the environmental side. Clearly, if there are people living in the northwest who are David's area, we be practical in terms of their location. If there are people who want to do that, then we just make sensible, practical decisions on how we manage this.
And I think we'll judge those decisions in terms of the business requirement and whether that can work for business delivery.
Thank you, Chair. Can I quickly come back on what my colleague Edmund raised in regard to illegal waste and the policing of illegal waste? Are there problems with my past experience? Licences used to be with local councils, handed over to NIA. We get the feeling, or I get the feeling, and others get the feeling, as soon as these licences are issued, little or no policing is done. Now, I find it hard, and is it the Moboy site? Is that what they call the one up in? Yeah. Because I raised that in the chamber, and it could have been up to 2 years ago when I first picked up on this, and it is concerning that such an activity could take place with maybe little or no knowledge of what was going on here. And there's lots of illegal waste taking place right across our province. And I'm just wondering, is that particular NIA, are they up to speed in policing these sites? Because, sometimes when these are reported and trying to get these people out on the ground, it can be a difficult time. Sometimes people have disappeared by the time they get out on site. So, is there not some particular area of work that needs to be done here to ensure that things are done quickly and swiftly to ensure that these people who are at this activity are caught and brought to court? Yeah. Because, quite honestly, I don't think there is that level of, what would you call it, expertise or what it is, or urgency there to do that, to get them to the courts. Because, how many have been brought to court? Do we know that? For all this illegal activity and the amount of millions and millions of pounds it's costing us?
I don't have the details, but yeah, we have had successful prosecutions. In the case of Moboy itself, there are prosecutions on the go at the moment. I don't want to be drawn into those. I sympathise with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, the Maboy site is a very, very large illegal waste site, and I think I've indicated there are others much smaller.
David, it calls into question people. My experience in my locality, you know, everyone knows what's going on. There's no doubt. If you don't know what's going on what around your own community, well, you're not living in it. And for something to take place of that scale for so long,
yep.
And for you to tell us, well, it was very sort of craftily sort of done, or some way they've carried it out. But you know, surely our officials should be so much ahead of the game to say, look, well, they're not going to get away with it if they're policing it right.
Well, what I can say is that when the Maboy site was discovered, a separate investigation report was prepared, and we have been implementing the findings of that report. You're right. I mean, the licensing, the controls, the regulations need to be in place, and I want to make sure that we are putting every resource that we have available to help us do that. We need to work very closely with councils, because councils have statutory roles in terms of managing waste, municipal waste. We need to get better at tracking where waste is within the system. So some waste goes off for recycling, some waste is reused, some waste goes to landfill. And I mean, what happened in the Maboy case was that waste was leaking out of the system. And the reason it was happening is because there is major financial incentive for the criminals who were doing this. This was organised criminal activity, which was successful, unfortunately, in terms of what was able to happen for so long. But we have changed a lot of the processes on the back of the report that was conducted around Maboy. But that is not the end of it. We have much more to do. And one of the, I think, the most significant pieces of work we need to do is around tracking waste, having really sophisticated systems in place that allow us to track waste that is in the system so that it can't leak out. You know, but we discovered a site recently in, I think, in the Cumber area. Same again, in the back of I think a farm, you know, well hidden from the road, and we discovered eventually that for about a year or two, illegal activity had been taking place. Again, the waste was going into deep holes, was being covered. It's not immediately obvious, and sometimes it is quite difficult to identify. But we are working very, very hard on this. I mentioned an environmental crime unit that we have now put in place. That is resourced by very, very experienced investigators. We have a financial investigation team now in place in terms of using our ability to freeze assets. So we have been doing an awful lot in the last couple of years on discovering the Maboy site, and we will continue to put a lot of effort into trying to manage the whole waste system better.
Thank you, Chair. But I think the message here today is that there has to be a great focus on this, and what's taking place, it has to cease and quickly as possible. Because I think if it's a resource problem or what it is, I don't know what's going on, but I think the placing of these sites and actually need to keep paramount.
I agree.
Thank you, Chair, for all your
No problem. Just in relation to that, I suppose, as has already been stated, it is a criminal action. So if there is a difficulty in getting in contact with NIA, I'm assuming that you can contact, if you believe that waste has been dumped illegally, you can contact the police directly. I'm assuming that's another avenue to go down. They don't need to wait for it to be
PSNI
informed by NIA. So I would just say to anybody that that is another avenue open to people, and where there are difficulties, that's what we should be doing. Sorry, Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. Just two quick things. When we talk about pricing and the whole thing about farm gate prices, processors and all, that was part of the role of that there was for the supply chain forum. And I think this is something that they should be doing more with. The supply chain forum itself should be meeting more often. It should have more representation from the farming industry, because the whole idea of one of the ideas of it being set up by the Minister was to have all the main players on one board where people could interact with each other and look at this whole case of pricing. We're still far behind what's been paid in England and Scotland for the finished product. That's the product going from here to England. So I would want to see that supply chain forum being utilised to its full potential And that's all I want to say on that there, if that can be taken away and looked at. But more representation on it for actual farmers, so then they could take their views to the processors, to the merchants, to everybody else that sits on. And my second part, and I'm not going to get at you about waste, but I have one bugbear on waste, is the licence that you charge farmers for used tyres to be used in agricultural use. And I think that licence is £600-800. Extortionate cost for a licence. And that only does for 3 years. I think it's 3 years, I'll be corrected on that. If that farmer wants to bring in more tyres, he has to pay another licence after 3 years. And I would ask you to look at that, to reduce that price. There's no need for that whatsoever. If you have to charge something nominal that the farmer can afford, because tyres it's a big part of the farming industry, especially silage.
Okay, I'm happy to look at that issue. It may be a case of explaining why the fee is set at the level it's currently at, but I'm certainly happy.
I've asked and they can't explain it to me. They just told me it's legislation. That's full stop.
Okay, well look, I'm happy to look at it again.
And the other thing to look at very quickly is quite a lot of farmers have outlying farms and have to transport the likes of tyres to their silos. Now, if they do that, they can be prosecuted for transport illegal waste. Now, I think that has to be looked at as well, because if the farmer does...
I'm happy to look at that issue, and if it helps, we can explain the regulation. And
if we could look at the regulation again and that there and see about changing, and the cost of that licence, I think, should be brought down to an affordable licence that every farmer can afford to pay, especially in this time of austerity. Looking for £600-800 for a licence, I think it's a bit much.
Okay, well, at this point, I don't know if we can reduce the fee, but I'm certainly happy to look at the issue.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
If we can just get something back to the committee on both of those issues. Harold?
Madam Chair, just interested to know where we are on the right of Malcolm Beattie, who's responsible for wind energy. Since the financial package has been withdrawn as such, or a certain element of it,
to get over it.
are we going to meet the wind energy targets but out there on single turbines or even wind farms, or where are we at?
Just to clarify, and sorry if I wasn't clear on this, the Department of the Economy will have energy policy responsibility. So in terms of those targets, I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question. Our development was looking at whether you could use the Forest Service estate and whether there were proposals where you could develop wind energy on that, and I'm happy to provide a briefing on that. The issues there are around connection to the grid, where you're located, and major financial issues, and how we want to use the forest estate. Happy to come back to you on that, but in terms of the overall development of energy, that would be the Department of Economy.
So we are not responsible for wind energy?
No, sorry. What we have a project looking at, is it feasible to develop wind turbines within the Forest Service estate? Chair.
You and Robin.
Thanks, Chair. So it was actually just something in Sunday's exchange with David. David, you're saying an environmental crime agency set up within the NIEA?
It's an environmental crime unit within the agency.
And a financial
investigation team.
Yeah. Will that be new?
That's reasonably new, yeah, and it gives us much more capacity in terms of financial investigations, where we can access proceeds of crime type legislation.
Okay. In regard to the environmental crime unit then, will that be directed towards farmers?
At this point, it's being directed mainly towards the significant kind of waste crime that we've talked about, the likes of the Mavoy site and other similar criminal waste activity, not so much at farmers.
At this point?
Yeah, and I mean, that wouldn't be the plan. We have other arrangements, we have other inspection teams that deal with the farming and agriculture type.
Right. In regard then to the freezing of asset management or assets, is that solely, will that be ring-fenced solely to waste management crimes, or will that carry over into other work of NIEI?
No, as far as I am aware, Robin, there are no plans to extend the kind of very sophisticated environmental crime activities, investigative activities, or financial investigation activities or tools that we have, and to apply them to the farming industry. Now, I will check into that, if you like. But those specific tools and the capacity was put in place to deal with the very significant waste crime that we're dealing with. It wasn't driven by agricultural type activities or concerns. And there are arrangements, as you know already, through cross-compliance and other mechanisms.
Yeah, and I think to be fair to the former DOE minister, it was the former DOE minister who put these arrangements in place, and we're ensuring we've adequate capacity to make sure those are in place. Because, I mean, as David said, it's targeting on a very significant issue of crime and waste.
Okay, thank you. If I could just ask, whenever anybody's asking a question or a response is coming back, that other people in the chamber, members, can keep noise to a minimum, because it's very difficult for the clerk to be able to hear what's going on, and difficult for myself, to be honest with you. Just to thank the Permanent Secretary and his team for coming here and making the presentation, and just to say to members that they will be remaining after this session for a cup of tea and just an informal chat. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Come to get used to it. Come to get used to it.
I'll keep it for next week.
Keep it for next week. I know you have an answer for it. Has it get better, has it? Has it get better?
Just have a few items left on the agenda before we...
Sorry, do you want us to go and then...
Just in the public gallery.
All right, okay.
We move to agenda item 10, which is correspondence. And you'll see the correspondence there at index sheet at page 180. There's a summary of all correspondence received there, and just there are also action points, suggested action points for members to consider and agree. So if you want to take a wee look at those, and then we can...
Chair, can I ask, when have we planned for a strategic planning day?
We were hoping to have it probably mid to end of September.
Right, because I just note that we don't intend to meet the Ulster Farmers Union until after that strategic planning day. That would be my only concern, that we're leaving one of our major stakeholders until quite late in the...
Okay, well, that's okay, no problem. We're going to be discussing those meetings under the forward work programme as well, but I can certainly move that up.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we agree then that the action on the correspondence is suggested? Yes, thank you. Agenda item 11, the draft forward work plan, and I'm going to let the clerk.
Yeah, members, just as a very draft forward work programme at the minute. As you can see, there it's at...
Sorry, it's page 223.
Yeah, 223. So next week we are hoping to have a briefing from the department on the June monitoring round and main estimates, and from one of the heads of groups, and I think one of the officials indicated today that it will be the Veterinary Service and Animal Health Group. But there's also been a request in for an oral briefing from the department on options for future support for ANCs and a review of the CAP couple support. That's be quite a detailed briefing as well. So that would be 3 quite detailed briefings next week, if you're happy with that. So it's, as I said, it's options for future support for ANCs, areas of natural constraint, and the review of the CAP couple support, which had been promised that there would be a review of that. So he's content enough with that?
Right.
In terms of the 16th of June, there will be, again, 2 oral briefings from the heads of groups that you've heard here today. That hasn't been confirmed who it'll be yet, but we're hoping to get those details sorted out shortly. There's one further request for an oral briefing on EQIA in terms of online as a primary means of communication with the farmer, but I've asked for further information on that. It may be more appropriate to take that initially as a written brief. It's an EQIA, not the actual, and see where we go. So maybe take it as a written brief first and take it. Do you need to take an oral briefing on that later if you're content with that? In terms of the 23rd of June, I would like the committee to decide whether a meeting is required. That is the day of the EU referendum. It's Thursday the 23rd of June. I would imagine from previous elections that members' attentions will be elsewhere and you may not want to meet. So again, is there a decision on whether to meet or not meet on the 23rd of June?
I'll not be here anyway, but that's... don't know about other members.
I think if most people are going to be otherwise engaged, there's no point in having a meeting where we may not have a quorum. Are we happy enough then that...
Okay.
Again, the 30th of June, we'll have a briefing from the final head of group. We are hoping, and this is still very provisional, that the Minister may come to be able to brief the committee at some stage between now and summer recess, but it may be in September, so we'll see how that goes. And we're also expecting a briefing on the 30th of June on the Farm Business Improvement Scheme update and progress. Again, I've asked for a little bit of further information on that. I know the previous committee was very interested in the Farm Business Improvement Scheme. It's a major capital scheme. There's a large number of written briefings that we have been asked to consider, and I'm just seeking further information on those, on the detail of those before I slot them into the forward work programme. And there's a large number of, again, oral briefings, such as the NIEA Business Plan, Forest Service Business Plan, NIFIS, an update on the SAF, which would probably wait until September, but there is a considerable amount of work coming forward. And then, of course, that just gives you the idea of the committee needing to set its own strategic priorities so that it can concentrate on its own work. Is that everything covered? Yeah, in terms of some other bits and pieces, then the briefing, you will have received briefings from all the heads of groups, so that will have left you briefings from Forest Service still to be received, and I'm going to suggest that maybe that's left till September. Are you content with that? And the Strategic Planning Day, if you're content that the committee should hold a Strategic Planning Day, it'll probably be a half day. We'll take one of the Thursdays that the committee normally meet in September. If you're content, staff will go away and look at either venue outside the building, but not too far away in the Greater Belfast area, or here in Parliament buildings, but not in this room necessarily, and come back with options for what we could possibly do and where we could possibly do it before summer recess. Would you be content that we come back with some options for you?
If I just can make one suggestion in relation to that, obviously in terms of trying to keep costs down, if we can have it in a building that is, if not here, a government building where we don't have to pay for the use.
No problem. I'll look at the whole issue of costs. And there's a couple of visits and events that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention now. There's the Grocery Code Adjudicators Annual Conference in June, and that is on Monday the 27th of June. Will include presentations from the Grocery Code Adjudicator as well as her annual report and where her focus has been, and an opportunity to meet other people and network over lunch. It's in London, so it's a Monday, it's a sitting day, and if any member wishes to attend, if you could let me know. We could probably do that in a day trip. You could probably get you out on the red eye and home on the last flight. So you don't need an overnight stay if you don't wish to. But if any member wishes to consider that, could you let us know, please? And then we have the National Ploughing Championships coming up in September. That is the 20th to 22nd of September. It's in Tullamore. The Ard Committee normally travel down to the, and I say normal because things may be slightly different this year, but we're basing it on what's happened previous years, to the event on the Tuesday night in order to attend the reception for the Northern Ireland exhibitors. There's normally about 100 Northern Ireland exhibitors down at the event. So again, if members want to attend, or you think maybe you want to nominate some members to attend rather than the whole committee going down, but that event books up very quickly. It is an overnight stay. Accommodation books up very quickly, and we would need to make a provisional booking for rooms even now. We would try, and closer to the time, once we've got details settled, to tie in some additional stuff around that, so you're not just going to the event, that we could go and see some other bits and pieces while you're down there.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Tullamore.
Tullamore
It's a
again.
different venue this year than it has been the last couple of years. It really has always at least had a presence there, if not, I think, if not most of the city there.
I think, we were thinking of trying something in the government department in that area. Vegas.
Yes.
I think that's,
Yeah.
last time we were there, very good, but didn't have long enough.
No.
And I think if you were thinking of doing that, it would need to be organised on a get there and have a tour of the place. Their beef, their sector, the sheep sectors. It's in Wexford. I think something like that there would be beneficial.
Okay, I'll certainly look at that. Members, in order to book rooms, I need a decision to that they want to go and how many rooms or how many people want to go. I just need, the way our procedures work, it needs to be minuted so that I can actually authorise our travel desk to book rooms. So you need to maybe try and make a decision on this.
I think we should open it to all the committee. Obviously not everybody is going to be able to go, and to let members out and tell us whether they want to go is probably the way to go forward, if everybody's happy enough to.
Could I get people to come back to me then by Tuesday next week, say?
I'm a no.
Or no, Robin's no, okay. Yeah. Okay, well, if people can formally come back to me by Tuesday next week, it'll be the 20th to 22nd of September.
And are we, what day would we be going?
You'd have to go on the Tuesday, so it's again as a day out of plenary.
You'd have to go on the Tuesday morning. No?
You'd have to go on the Tuesday morning, yes. You do have to go on the Tuesday morning. Okay. I'll chase people up on that.
Can I just ask one quick thing? I think so. Talking to Lucy Cole, the it's getting reviewed this year.
Yes.
Maybe trying to find out what way it's government is thinking of reviewing.
Okay. I'll find out. It's not, I think it's just whether the rule remits to be extended.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, because to see what way, because that would affect here on farm gate prices, etc., on suppliers.
Well, the grocery code adjudicator really governs the relationship between the retailer and the primary supplier to them, not necessarily the entity doesn't govern price, but
it'd be interesting to know if they have thinking of reviewing, reviewing the whole thing or reviewing part of it.
I'll find out. And then the final issue to mention to you is just Northern Ireland Environment Week, which is in September. And the previous Environment Committee hosted the first Northern Ireland Environment Week in September last year. And they had given a commitment to do so for Northern Ireland Environment Week this year. Again, it's an event in September. The rooms have been provisionally booked, but this committee now needs to confirm that it will sponsor Northern Ireland Environment Week. It will be primarily, the events will be primarily here on the 26th and 27th of September, which is again a Monday and Tuesday, here in Parliament Buildings. The working theme of the week that we are aware of so far is farming in a changing climate. Is about celebrating the rich natural environment and the food it produces. So that's Northern Ireland Environment Week.
Is there a cost to the committee, or is it just a sponsorship?
It's initially the committee sponsors it, but last year the committee did pick up some of the costs in terms of hosting the workshops and seminars on the Tuesday.
Right. And what status?
That was, I'm off the top of my head, I did see the cost is about 1,500.
Yeah, it was less than that, I think.
It was
It's
less than,
under-
it was less than
under that.
1,500.
What's this committee's budget?
This committee hasn't got a set budget. We work within a budget set for all committees.
Something in the dark then?
If the committee wishes to sponsor it, then there will be no difficulty with that.
What are we talking about here?
It would be a reception in the Long Gallery on the, if it follows last year's format, on the Monday evening, and then a number of workshops and seminars on the Tuesday. And they'll be building a number of events around that, not just in Stormont, but in, you know, all throughout Northern Ireland.
I think it's something we should look at. You know,
I do think that it probably would be something that we should be certainly considering sponsoring, given that environment has only just come under this committee. I wouldn't want those in the environmental sector to be thinking that they're going to be left out in the cold, that this is going to be a farming only committee and rural affairs and that environment is going to be forgotten about. So I would just have a wee bit of concern that how that would be viewed by the environmental sector.
And agree, Chair. I mean, if the title is farming in a changing climate, it does appear to put the two bits together.
They're doing their bit. I
In a way
think we
that
should.
we need to ensure we do keep a focus on.
Okay, so the committee content to sponsor the event then?
Yep. Great.
Great.
Okay. If any members have any other business they want to raise? No? I'll take that as a no. Okay, the next meeting will be held next Thursday, the 9th of June, in this committee room 30 at 10 a.m. Thank you. And just as I've said before, Permanent Secretary and the staff have remained here just to have a cup of tea and an informal chat with us, so anybody that's able to remain behind should.
This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 30. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee.